Okay. So honestly, I just cannot emphasize this point enough. And this is how I spiral, and or can be perceived as spiraling down. But just as nicotine is an addiction, so is this. Like, it is so frustrating that people's cognitive dissonance surrounding this point that I continue to revisit. And the cognitive dissonance is ignorance. It's just people, it's just pure ignorance, and it's on a massive scale. We're talking a mass psychosis. Okay. So I'm just gonna keep railing on this stuff, okay? I wanna touch on two things. The first is the They Live scene with the martial law stormtrooper police. That's that scene, okay? Because martial law stormtrooper militant police is like a very sexy, hot subject in the conspiracy truther movement. That conspiracy truthers love to talk about martial law and everything, and it's a real buzz clickbaity type thing. Martial law, stormtrooper militant martial law police coming, and they're always trying to predict how this is going to happen and everything. So I want to touch on that in regards to the movie They Live and poverty, because They Live is about poverty. Okay. And then I also want to show you another example of how using the subject of poverty, you can measure the authenticity of a narrative. You can measure the authenticity of a narrative using the subject of poverty as your barometer, as your measurement. So let's first start with that. Now, this is derived from the Gandhi quote, where Gandhi says, "You can measure a society by how it treats its poor." And as much as you might hate Gandhi, and as much as you might believe the allegations that Gandhi is just a kitty diddler, it's been exposed that he's a kitty diddler. Well, I've been hearing that. But I've never seen that. Where's the documentation, the declassified files, or anything that's proven that? And does it even matter? Say a liar tells the truth. Does that mean the truth isn't true? So anyways, disclaimer. This so-called theory that I keep presenting and railing on, this particular one is based in Gandhi's quote that you can measure a society by how it treats its poor. Therefore, you can measure the truth community society by how the truth community treats the poor and the subject of poverty. That's it. And you literally can. I have been doing this I have to keep reiterating, I have well over 70,000 hours of research into this, and field study and field experience and training. So these guys that are trying to say, anybody that would try to negate this, you have to look at how much have they really looked into this and researched it. Because I guarantee you, first of all, it's not a popular subject to be researching. And the vast majority of all these so-called intellects, they only research popular subjects because they're trying to make a career out of their intellect by creating channels and all this YouTube channels and all this other shit. And all these popular channels dominate the so-called intellectual society online. And they're all sellout frauds. So anyways, first let's give an example of how the the subject of poverty can accurately measure the authenticity of a narrative. Let's look at the liberal ideology, the narrative of the liberal ideology. Now, maybe you're a liberal, maybe it doesn't matter, because even if you're a liberal, if you listen to what I'm saying and you truly listen and you're truly honest with yourself, you will agree with me. The reason I say this is because I have a lot of friends that are liberals, and I have discussed this with them at length to the point where they admit that I'm right. Yet they'll still vote liberal and they still hate Trump and all this stuff. Okay? But nonetheless, they admit that I'm right. So let us use the barometer of poverty to measure the authenticity of the liberal ideology narrative. So the liberal claims that they are against all prejudice. Any group of people that's prejudiced, they are defending the rights of, correct? Yeah, generally that is correct. And any liberal who would try to argue that no, that's not what it is, they're not being honest with themselves. So this requires a higher level of self-honesty. The liberals claim that they are defending the downtrodden and the people that are, and the disenfranchised. The Liberal Party is the party that defends the disenfranchised, those who are prejudiced against, and the downtrodden. Bottom line, that is what they claim. Okay? So how often do you see the liberals defending the disenfranchised, homeless populations that are in the hundreds of thousands and over 1 million in every city of every state across the entire fucking nation of the US? Do you see them ever defending never? They never do. And if you are actually paying attention like I am to the narrative, and you watch CNN and you just watch, just like listen to the liberal narrative on CNN and ABC and NBC. Well, they completely ignore the homeless entirely. The only time they don't is when they're demonizing the homeless. That is the only time the liberal is ever talking about the homeless. You know, you've ever heard of the term NIMBY, not in my backyard? This is what conservatives accuse the liberals are totally guilty of. The liberals will claim they support something as long as it stays away from them, as long as it's not near them. Yeah. And the NIMBY is basically the same description that Martin Luther King uses to describe the white moderate that is illustrated in the the Birmingham Letters, where Martin Luther King states that he has come to the regrettable conclusion that it's not the KKK and the overt racists that are the stumbling block to the Negro's freedom. No, it is not them. You know who it is? The white moderate, or in other words, the NIMBYist, the NIMBY. They support all these things, but they just don't want them around them. They support Black Lives Matter, but they don't want Black Lives Matter marching through their upper middle class neighborhoods. They want them just keep it away from us. The white moderate, the NIMBYist. Liberals are big time NIMBYists. So are conservatives, but right now we're just using liberals. Okay, so you can measure the authenticity of the liberal narrative using the subject of poverty. Liberals never defend equality for the poor. They only defend equality for races. Race. It's all about race and gender. That women are oppressed and people of color are oppressed. They never talk about that homeless people are oppressed. Now, let's go dig a little deeper. Arguably, if you actually research and observe the homeless phenomena, it's easily arguable that homeless Americans face more prejudice than any people of color or gender. And not only is this easily arguable, it's the overwhelming evidence to support it is basically like empirical evidence shows that that's true. It's like, it's practically not even arguable. Oprah Winfrey makes $10 a second, dude. But yet race is the big problem here. Oprah Winfrey makes it's like $10 a minute. Oprah Winfrey makes $10 fucking dollars a minute. And yet race is still the big thing on the table, according to liberals. Dude, you can measure the authenticity of the liberal ideology narrative with the subject of poverty and homeless. The subject of poverty and homelessness demolishes the whole premise of what the liberal ideology is based on. Liberals are overtly prejudiced, openly and overtly in front of God and everyone, prejudiced against the homeless and the poorest people in the U.S. While they hypocritically, like in front of God and everybody, like will claim that they are the righteous people that are defending the most downtrodden and those most disenfranchised peoples. Like, it is such a fucking massive overt lie that it is beyond disgusting. The only way a person can subscribe to the liberal ideology is by pure ignorance. There's a quote in contempt prior to investigation will lead a man into everlasting ignorance. If you investigate what I propose, that homelessness and poverty you can use the subject of homelessness and poverty to measure the authenticity of the liberal ideology. If you investigate this, you will find hands down that the liberal ideology is a complete lie. There is nothing further from the truth than that the liberals and Democrats care about the disenfranchised and the downtrodden. No, that is the furthest thing from the truth. Yet everybody votes for the liberal and Democrats based on that exact ideology, that this is the party that cares more about the disenfranchised. Well, and they love Malcolm X and stuff. Like, for example, the liberal loves Malcolm X, but Malcolm X himself is quoted saying the liberals are more dangerous to the Negro than the conservatives, which Malcolm X was right. But, and like I said, I can have these discussions with fucking full-on liberals that vote Democrat every time, all the time, and they will agree with me. And I'm not talking about stupid liberals. I'm talking about liberals that have, upper middle class careers and are perceived by society as successful and shit. They admit I'm right, yet they'll still vote for the liberal. Now I'm just saying this is one example of how you can use poverty as a barometer to accurately measure the authenticity of a narrative. And I'm picking on the liberals here, but you can apply this to the conservatives with the Constitution, and it's the identical same thing, okay? And these other examples I brought up, like child sex trafficking, and how look at poverty and homelessness in relation to the sex trafficking phenomenon. all the sex trafficked children, the majority of them are all poor and homeless children that are being exploited. But nobody ever talks about that, yet everybody talks about sex trafficking. So there's another measuring the authenticity of a narrative by using the subject of poverty and homelessness as a barometer. They're full of shit, okay? The same with, and we're talking about Epstein, P. Diddy. These are massive scandals that you can use this to measure the authenticity of the narrative surrounding these scandals. And the hurricane, that's a big popular one. These hurricanes, the other ones here, right? More displaced people. Displaced means homeless. So I'm just like, I could do this all day, every day, all day, and smash these fucking false narratives that everyone is drinking like Jim Jones Kool-Aid all day. They're drinking the Kool-Aid on this shit like nobody's business and want to talk about it, and they're all full of shit. So now let's look at They Live, the scene with the martial law. So if you're familiar with the movie They Live, I already talked about this, but I'm going to revisit it because this point cannot be emphasized enough. Like, this is the mass psychosis with the entire population of the human race. Like, these people are just so consenting to ignorance to appease and rationalize their false paradigms, so they can continue living in comfort while everyone around them is fucking just collapsing from death by poverty all around them, and they just don't care because ignorance is bliss, So, so it's ridiculous, right? So anyways, okay. So martial law, you cannot deny that martial law is a big, sexy thing that the truthers love to talk about. Martial law is coming. We've been hearing this for years. Oh my God, martial law, it's going to happen. Well, unbeknownst to them, it's already been here because they don't pay any attention to the homeless phenomena. They don't know that that scene in the movie They Live, that's why they put that scene in there, because martial law has been enacted on the homeless for well over a decade, and then you got all these truthers saying martial law is coming. They don't even know it's here and it's already been here. The truth is martial law is coming for everyone who's not homeless, because everyone who's not homeless has allowed martial law to trample the homeless for fucking well over a decade. But see, none of these truthers want to talk about this. And the reason is, it's because they're all guilty of allowing martial law to crush the homeless for decades, and have never said nothing about it. They've never stood up against it. See, they don't care until it starts coming for them. Then they start crying, martial law is coming, martial law is coming. Well, that's because the population at large has allowed it. So yeah, it's coming. Sorry. So that's the thing, like, just taking this one scene out of the movie They Live, it's like so bizarre, because this is an illustration of real life martial law that happens in this country all the time, where martial law stormtroopers come in droves with police cars and armored trucks and helicopters and bulldozers and fucking completely raid homeless camps. This happens all the time, everywhere, all the time. This is a regular, ongoing occurrence that is illustrated in the movie They Live. So, like, if martial law is such a sexy topic and subject in the truther community, which, if you know anything about the truther community, you cannot deny what I'm saying. This is true. Well, but then why don't they ever talk about the martial law that's been enacted upon the homeless all this time? They never talk, like, never, dude, never. And these guys have been doing this truther bullshit for fucking, dude, over a decade. and they've never talked about it. But they love to talk about They Live and how important They Live is, and how everybody needs to watch They Live because it's a document. They Live is a documentary and stuff. You know, so again, this is just more about, you know, the subject of poverty and how it's completely ignored. And there's a very specific reason that poverty and homelessness is people run from that subject. Like they're afraid to talk about, it's the elephant in the room. There's a specific reason. It's not by coincidence that this is that elephant in the room. And like I said, I talk to people who will agree with me on these things, but then they'll never talk about it. They run channels and they're putting out videos, 5 videos a week, but they will never talk about what I'm saying, but they agree with me. And that's because they have to agree with me, because that's the truth, unless they want to be a liar and lie to themselves. But the thing is, their actions speak louder than words, because they will continue to not talk about this. And the reason is because they know their audience doesn't want to hear it. It's just like the preacher at the congregation. The preacher preaches to the congregation what the congregation wants to hear, not what the Bible actually says. Whether you're religious and believe in the Bible or not, nonetheless, this is the truth. The preacher preaches to the congregation what the congregation wants to hear, not what the Bible says. Why? Because the congregation are the people that put money in the basket. So these channels do the same thing as the preacher. They don't tell people what's going on. They tell people what people want to hear. Why? Because those are the people that watch their videos and click the like button and subscribe. I mean, and so these people running these channels, when I talk to them and engage them, they agree 100%. Yeah. But do they ever talk about what I'm talking about? No. And the more I talk to them, the more they would agree the seriousness of this. Like, this is as big as any P. Diddy scandal or this is what globalism is all about. This is what all of this is all about. And they will agree. Yet when they're running their channel, they won't even mention that that's what this is all about. They'll continue to, say what everybody wants to hear, because their audience are the ones that are watching their videos. Thelonious Monk was right. Don't do what people want. Do what you want and let the people catch on. Even if it takes them 10, 20, 30 years. That's how everyone should be running their channel, instead of trying to appease their audience, No truth. Dude, people try to rationalize, well, the truth is so important that I need to not talk about the homeless aspect of it, because that's how important the truth is. The truth is so important that I need to lie to people. Bullshit. When a man lies, he murders some part of the world. That's a Merlin quote from the movie Excalibur. When a man lies, he murders some part of the world. You should know this. And so if you're rationalizing omitting this truth of which I keep talking about, and your rationalization is as well, the truth is so important that I need to be dishonest in order to reach people, then you don't even understand you don't have any more understanding of what's going on than your typical NPC sheeple. And you're not doing anything. You're not making any improvement at all. You're just contributing to the very thing you claim you're against.